I'm Tox Easy Peasy, and you're watching 30 Minutes on the Palmer Times. RyanJSyndicate has served Ridgway's legal community in several different ways, from holding the position as state prosecutor to holding positions in the Solicitor General's office, the office of the Deputy Attorney General, and the position of Assistant Attorney General within the Office of Government Affairs. He has a great understanding of our legal system and has been effective at the stopping of criminal activities. He believes that he is more than competent to become governor of Ridgway and will serve to benefit everyone within the state.
The story will continue in a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Palmer Times. Today we have RyanJSyndicate. Mr. Ryan, how are you today?
I am doing absolutely astonishing today. Thank you for having me on this great
Wonderful news. Mr. Ryan, elections are coming on in the state of Ridgway. What do you have to say about this?
You know, every 4 months we come across a crossroads per se, and I think now the citizens have more than an ample opportunity to decide on the future of a state that they wish to, foster. These elections are always important; they always will be, and I think now it's time to make the right decision and get to it. Let's get to work.
Amazing input. What is your campaign platform?
So, ours it's simple, really. We're gonna make the streets safe. We're gonna focus on small business owners, and we're gonna focus on the guard. Those are our key points. I mentioned them. Small businesses, we want to remove the felon restrictions on those. We want, people that maybe have turned to a life of crime that didn't really know some of the new people. We want to get them more involved into the community. And by doing so, we plan on issuing, grants of somewhat to business owners that are looking to start up within the state. And then going beyond that, we want to contract civilian businesses to provide services for government agencies are, failing through. So, for example, once Milton releases, my administration would love to contract out a taxi cab company to one or a couple businesses within the state to provide services to the city of Milton. I think stuff like that is the cornerstone of community development and our foundation that we need to keep building upon.
You mentioned granting private businesses, so you think that the government should be involved in the private economy?
Not the economy per se. I think we should give them the tools to flourish. And what I mean by that is we shouldn't be regulating and controlling, but we should let people, foster their ideas. And to add on to that, we really shouldn't be regulating. Our regulations are so tight within this, state that there is so much unnecessary legislation that just keeps adding and adding and adding. And the pork on these bills are just getting enough, and it's hurting the civilians at this point. And honestly, we need to move on from that. We need less regulation, and we need to foster small businesses, like I said.
Amazing. And speaking of small businesses, who are you endorsing for the Department of State?
The Department of State, I have selected Jason Bornaxis as my endorsement. I've looked at his campaign, and I've seen what he's done. Honestly, I like it. I like what I'm seeing. I think if we get him in there, we definitely will have a good shot at fostering more, a foreign and domestic policy. And I think he's bringing to the table what a lot should be done to the State Department.
Interesting. You talked a bit about RNG, and what is your opinion on the recent nomination for the Adjutant General position?
It's a very good question. I think the position is extremely vital to the future of the state, so it is important to have a strong leader in there that will understand the lower enlisted and just the overall atmosphere of the guard. I'm not really sure of the two candidates that were going up. I think there might have been more from what I was hearing, but Dami, he's done a great job in the military police battalion. I really respect him, for what he's done over there. And I heard his interview was really good with, the incumbent Large Titanic. So I guess we just got to wait and see. I don't really know anything beyond that.
Very interesting. There are many prominent figures in the community saying, quote, RNG is fucked. And many are saying that they report hearing him say that he doesn't even want the position over VC. What do you have to say about that?
I don't believe that. I don't believe that one bit. I think he wants to get in there and prove himself. He's a hardworking guy, gritty guy. I think he's gonna get in there. I think he's gonna. I believe in him. I want to believe in my cabinet. I want to believe in these people. Obviously they made it this far for a reason. I mean, let's give him a shot. Let's see how he does, and then if that doesn't work, then we come back to the drawing board. It's all about creating, fairness and opportunity within, the state. And if we're just going solely based off, friendships or who we think should, be in the position, then we never really know, how well someone can do. Or, let's say you get a hidden gem, we'll do a Madden reference right now. Hidden Dev Superstar X Factor. Okay. You never know when you're going to get one of those like hidden guys. And it's important to consider, all of our options.
Very wonderful. Circling back to prominent figures and the Secretary of State, what do you have to say about your endorsement and his scandal several months ago? Do you think that this impacts his reputation and how he may handle affairs?
His reputation, from what I've seen, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's over misrepresentation. And don't get me wrong, I don't know every little minute detail of the situation that occurred, but from my general understanding, I think take it as a learning experience. Like the guy's young, okay. I think instead of having it holding him back, I think he's going to use that and push it forward, push it outwards. Kind of something like that. Give him the more motivation. Like, hey, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna prove these guys wrong, okay, and then we're gonna get shit done.
Interesting take. And many people are saying that you have no actual campaign platform, but rather are primarily running smear campaigns against the other candidates. What do you have to say to them?
That is not true at all. Smear campaigns, everyone does them, but it's just people are only, seeing that. They don't really dig deeper. If you look at my website that I have published, the agenda is right on the first page. It's right there. My failures in the state letter, it's addressed everything that we want to. When you enter my campaign Discord, within the first channel that you see information, it gives info about myself and Carnage, as well as what our plans want to be. It's a 3-phase plan. It's right there. It's publicly available. It is open. It is there. I encourage any of the doubters saying that we are not running an actual campaign, to go look, just dive deeper, and you will see that it's there.
I see. Speaking of Carnage, what do you have to say about your running mate? What would he have to say if he were here right now?
Carnage, he's a hell of a guy. I don't know if you guys really know him or have gotten the chance to work with him, but he's a gritty leader. And I say this, coming from experience. If we look at the state police, he was moved into the lieutenant spot of the tactical support unit, right? And then within his leadership, in-game presence has increased by 90%. That is a 90% increase of in-game TSU unit presence. Now, if you can't say you can't get the job done, then I don't know what to tell you. 90% increase, he's got something figured out. And I think we could take that, knowledge, move it to the Senate. We're gonna get stuff done. As simple as fact.
Interesting. Speaking of the Senate, what is your opinion on the current Senate? Many people are saying that this is, quote, worse than the last one. Would you agree with this sentiment?
Now, The last one, it was an interesting one. Okay, um, I wouldn't say it's worse than the last one. I'd say maybe it's a little bit better. The last one, I don't know if you guys saw, but the Talon, guilty verdict, they manipulated votes to impeach, sitting lieutenant governors. Now, stuff like that, that's, I mean, I don't think you can get much worse than that. I think that's kind of like bottom of the barrel you're hitting.
Right. And you say that it's only a little better than the last one, though. You don't seem to have very much confidence in the current Senate, Mr. Syndicate. Why is that?
Well, if we look at just the time frame of everything that's happening, within around a week, maybe two, we already had a senator expelled. And we got to turn to the leadership at this point and say, maybe something's not clicking there. Maybe the president pro tempore, maybe the president of the Senate, maybe they're not, keeping your guys in line, right? And with that, it's just a leadership question. I mean, we can't really, expect people to get stuff done if the leaders there are not present and involved in encouraging people and fostering a good environment. And I think it's a huge impact on how people view the Senate.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your input. We're going to have a short water break while we support some technical issues. Tough shit.
That is actually so tough. That is so tough.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Mr. Ryan, how did you enjoy your water?
Very hydrating, I'm going to say.
I can taste the microplastics.
Definitely.
All right. Mr. Ryan, back to the meat and potatoes. Polls are not looking in your favor. What do you have to say about this, and will you make changes to your campaign?
Well, polls are polls. And, I mean, if you guys are going off the same poll from that social media website, the same one where I was told by Talon 10101 that he supported the killing of RyanJSyndicate and then included the hashtag RyanJSyndicate, please kill yourself. I think if you're using that as a base standard to make a decision on that, then obviously you're kind of reaching for straws here. I think we should wait until we see the omnibus approval poll that's released by the Adler Group, just because that has been out for longer and has had more data collected rather than this most recent poll before we make decisions on polls. And I don't campaign on polls, We're here for the people, not the numbers.
Right. And what do you have to say about multiple senators in the Senate endorsing matrix and mandatory?
I mean, you got to suck up to someone, right? Might as well be your boss.
So you would say that this is a career choice from them?
I mean, everything is a career choices, They're all just movements to, get yourself somewhere else. I don't know which senator endorsed who. I mean, Matrix, he actually banned me from his campaign Discord. I said hi, and I was banned within the next like 5 seconds. So I don't know who's supporting him, and I can't really communicate with their campaigns. So
very interesting. Well, Mr. Ryan, you spoke about the private sector quite a bit earlier. Could you go into more detail about this and your plans?
You mean like small business stuff?
Yes.
Sure. I think there's new people coming in, right? Every day, and if we keep focusing on the same old, like, hey, you're not really getting told what's happening, right? And then you get arrested, and you're pretty much you're tossed out of the system until you can get it cleared. And most of these people, they don't know how. I think we need to be more lenient on that, and then shift some of that to the civilian businesses. If we can encourage civilian businesses to welcome and hire more new, like, incoming people, then they're not really going to turn to more of a criminal action, right? They're going to be primarily going to the semi-legal route, is what I want to, call it, where, maybe on occasion they'll commit a crime every now and then, but they're not really focusing on that. So it's not really going to hinder them. They do decide to move into like a government department or something like that. And then it's just overall, it's going to foster more of a community with us instead of just, cops and robbers.
Right. And are you currently satisfied with all of the department heads, or do you plan on making your own changes?
I mean, I, when I get in there, we're going to obviously take a relook and see, is this succeeding? Is this working? I think it's important to weigh our options before we make decisions on that. So I'm not going to give a yes or no if I'm satisfied, because at the end of the day, I don't really know. I'm going to have to get in there. I'm going to have to check it out myself to see if I am truly satisfied.
All right. Mr. Ryan, if your competitors were in this room right now, what would you have to say to them?
Uh, I'm a team player. I'm a competitive guy, so I'm going to say, hey, man, you're running a great race so far. Let's keep it up. Let's take it to the polls. I got no hate for anyone here. Contrary to popular belief, and I don't know what they think, but I got no hate for them. If we lose, we lose. At least we can say we tried. But at the end of the day, we're all gonna run a race. We're gonna run hard. We're gonna fight this till the end. So I mean, it's pretty much all I got.
Very interesting. What is your take on Milton, and how do you plan to approach it with all the new legislation that it's going to need?
Milton is an interesting topic, and I'm glad you brought this up. Like I said, is I want to get the more civilian aspect involved within this community. I mean, if we look at it now from an overview standpoint, how many LEO departments we're gonna have? 5 at this point, maybe 6, depending on how the chips fall. It's important to reconsider, is this the move that we want to go with? Instead of focusing on law enforcement, what if we focus on civil stuff? Like a taxi cab contract where there's taxis driving around, between Milton, between Palmer, Sterling. They're giving people rides. They can work alongside the transit authority. And then maybe like a sanitation if we get dev support. Go around, pick up garbage within the city at like drop off points or something like that. Just get the community more involved, and it's just we need to focus less on the police within like expanding police powers, so like creating new law enforcement agencies, rather you know put it to civilian use, because half the people, like 500 people that have registered, there's like maybe a couple hundred 200 people that aren't using it and are like just not around. So there's really no point to create another department if we're not going to have the staffing to fill it. So why don't we focus on the civilians that are in game rather than the cops that are not in game?
Very interesting. Speaking of focusing on civilians and the private sector, what do you have to say about the Pinkerton Towers coming up in Milton?
Pinkerton, great company. I love the work that you guys are doing down there. Obviously, I would love to expand Pinkerton a little bit more to include, working alongside governmental contracts. Obviously we need to go see how the chips are going to fall, but I'd like them to have at least somewhat of a security presence within public venues, maybe within the city of Milton, and alongside stuff like that. So like if we get a stadium in there, I would love to see the Pinkertons contracted out as like a public, security agency for the stadium itself, instead of having to rely on just law enforcement protecting it if there is an event there. It gets them involved. It just it's less burden on the police. Instead, they can be focusing on actual criminal activities. People are getting shot in like Sterling or something like that, instead of focusing on searching people or like making sure they don't have weapons coming into the a stadium or like a public crowd. But I think it's important to get those guys involved. They're doing great work over there.
All right. Do you believe we should have better relations with other states? And if so, which ones and why?
I do. I think we should, kind of expand out a little bit. It's important to do have relations, but at the same time, we also need to focus on domestically. Um, there's not really a lot of nations that are coming to mind, besides maybe a Mayflower remade or two, and that's about it. That's what the current landscape looks like. It's really hard to find nations that are going to succeed and will last. Besides, like example of Firestone or Vancouver, which those are not really up to our standards. We need to raise our standards. Don't get me wrong; those guys will probably have a great community. I mean, I myself started in Firestone, um, but we need to expand with the times. And Firestone, they just really haven't been, moving with the times. They haven't been expanding, with us. They haven't been upgrading. They haven't been updating. It's just that kind of mindset where you're stuck in the same 2016, 2018 era instead of moving to a modern age, government. It, it's it's interesting to work with, because you're gonna have to use old tactics. Um, the only one I can think of right now is maybe Ghost remade that he's making. I think that's getting a lot of traction. I think some of the administration there is good. I think maybe we can get a good, governor, maybe a good secretary of state, and really get something going with that. Um, but on the topic of state involvements, I'm gonna circle back to the guard. Um, I want to get those guys involved. As a guardsman, you're sitting at base pretty much all day. You're not really doing much. Maybe you go to the recruiting office if there's a sergeant on. And I would know I'm in the guard too. So I think if we can focus on more of like a joint training exercise with them, right? We'll go like example. We'll take the guard. We'll go have fun in like a Mayflower remade. We'll go to the state park that they have, and we'll get the National Guard there to supply the RNG guys with like their rifles or something like that. If we could figure that out, iron out the details. But we go there. We create battle plans. We create actual plans. We have movements. We focus on the NCOs, and we develop those guys into becoming higher leaders within the guard. And we just let them have fun. We let them shoot at each other, man. I mean, it's all about having fun. And at the end of the day, sitting at the gate, it's not fun. Let's be honest. You're tabbed out half the time. Let's get these guys involved. Let's get these guys having fun, and let's bring activity to it. Get the department numbers higher.
Speaking of department numbers, Milton City Police. Do you think we should cut the budget on certain departments so that there won't be a overwhelming cop to civilian ratio? And how many police officers do you think Milton will hold?
Honestly, I'm not a fan of killing jobs. If we have extra space, sure, we'll cut it and we'll trim it to fit the needs of the department. But if we don't, I don't want to, say like, hey, you're getting your kick racks, pack your bag, buddy. We don't have space for you. I think instead, if we do end up, having to kick a couple people out of like a department or something to make more budget room for MCPD, then I think, and this is just me talking, and I don't know if development oversight is going to be okay with this. I think we just give them a job at MCPD if we have the spots. We'll transfer them over to patrol. They can decide where they want to go from there if they want to. I don't think these people have worked. They've dedicated time to the state. We shouldn't just tell them like, hey man, we're closing down a couple spots. You gotta pack your bags. I think like, hey, we gotta shut down some spots. We gotta make some room, and then we're gonna like, hey, do you want a spot over here? You can come there. You can do what you want there. I think it's bad if we focus on just firing people and not giving them an option to go somewhere else. But to determine a budget for Milton, I wouldn't know. I need to see how big the map is. I'm gonna need to see how big, how much of a demand it's gonna need and how we can effectively respond to that.
All right, Mr. Syndicate, thank you for your time today.
Mhm.
As we come up to close, do you have any final remarks to the audience?
Yeah, I actually do. I'd say don't vote for name recognition. Vote for somebody, or at least something that you believe in. And I know a lot of the campaigns are running just solely based off name recognition, and that's how it has been for a while. But I think if you really want to effectuate change, you need to step outside your comfort zones. Um, and you know, I don't have the biggest friend group as Matrix, or I don't have the name recognition as Clonox, but I think it is important and imperative that you review what we have to offer instead of just picking boundaries and closing them off. And websites right there. If you guys want to join the campaign Discord, feel free to message me. I love talking to the community, and you can ask anyone that. I love talking to you guys. It's fun. It's great to get to know you.
All right, that concludes the final segment. Ladies and gentlemen of the Ridgeway County, thank you, and let's give it up for Mr. Syndicate. Okay, that was cursed. Let's get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.